2. Well, are you ready? Is it live now? Go back here. I think we're live. Okay, go ahead and go live. And then once that triggers, let me know. Miet, could you check our YouTube live channel with it muted? What's up, everybody? It's Dan.
Eric?
From Atlas Lens Co. Hope everybody, no matter where you are in the world, is having a great day, evening, morning, whatever the case may be for you. We're having a pretty good morning, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we just got back from Las Vegas, kind of starting to decompress and get back to normal life. And wanted to sort of do a little recap of our NAB experience. I saw a lot of you out there.
Yeah, it was really nice connecting with everyone.
So fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ton of people from all around the world visiting, and we just had a fantastic experience at the show. And super proud to say, humbly, thank you for helping us win the NAB Product of the Year award for the Mercury series lenses. So that's a pretty exciting thing. Feels good. And I think they upped the game on the glass trophy this year. It's kind of
it's pretty cool.
Perfect for a lens, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for the NAB Product of the Year award for Mercury series. Yeah, we had a lot of cool guests at our booth this year too, like that we were hosting. So we had Alessandro and the team from Ready Rig. Always a pleasure to see what they're up to. Did you get a chance to spend much time with them? I mean,
I was in the Mercury Lounge most of the time, so I didn't get a ton. Did sit next to him at dinner and we talked a lot. Super cool guy. Just building that company up from like nothing is really cool.
We have to get his dad in here sometime too. So his dad is over 95 years old, and he was a camera assistant in Italy before he became a cinematographer, and he worked on some of the very first CinemaScope movies. So I'm really excited to get Alessandro's father in here and hear about his experience working with the very first CinemaScope adapters and then the CinemaScope lenses that they made.
I think that would dovetail really well into, I know we did a live broadcast with Roy Wagner at ASC, who had a lot of really interesting insight, and I know we also want to do Mark Irwin too.
Yeah. Thank you, by the way, Mr. Wagner, Mr. Irwin, Mr. Probst for coming by, and sorry to say our internet wasn't working on that last day, so we didn't do the live stream from the booth. But yeah, we're really excited to have all of you back again as guests, and I left all of those conversations super inspired.
I know, especially Roy talking about Ansel Adams' mentorship of him, and then I really want to talk to Mark Irwin more about Scream and convincing Wes Craven to switch to anamorphic lenses for the first time. That was like a really fascinating story.
Yeah, so
super cool. Yeah.
So, one of the big news from the show was Sony introducing anamorphic D-Squeeze into their FX3 line of cameras. And so we're coming to you live right now through a Sony FX3 with the new anamorphic D-Squeeze firmware and a 40mm Orion series lens. And we're being filmed by the fantastic Matt Sala operating our camera. We have the lovely DeCell running the YouTube live stream and Instagram live stream. We have Oksana helping field your questions, and we have Miet here helping hold it down on the show floor here at Atlas HQ in Glendale, California. So yeah, I mean, Eric, what were some of your highlights from the show? I know we talked about Ready Rig a little bit. We talked about the new Sony FX3 firmware with anamorphic D-Squeeze. We also had Zach and Cassie from Take a Trip TAT70 with their viewfinder.
That's a really cool viewfinder, yeah.
So, I don't know how many of our audience have used an optical viewfinder for a director's finder or for finding shots before, but it's kind of a traditional tool for lining up a shot with a director without having to move an entire camera. So if you have your camera attached to a dolly or a crane and you're just trying to find sort of your start point or end point of shots, or just generally frame finding, it's a fantastic tool to envision a shot directly through the lens that you might be hoping to use, and saves a lot of time when you're working with a much larger crew, or even if you're just scouting and you sort of want to establish notes on directly which lens you might use and where you might position it.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna add to that because I know there's like the iPhone app and there's like a tablet app, but each update kind of changes it. And I mean, it's the best to have an optical viewfinder that you can actually just take on set and use the actual glass that you're shooting with.
And it lets you sort of perceive some of the optical effects of that particular lens too, right? In terms of like distortion. So, you know, one 40 millimeter lens might have one type of distortion and another 40 millimeter lens might have a different type of distortion. So in terms of finding compositions in different spaces and blocking with actors.
Yeah, especially if you're
useful,
using
right?
like vintage anamorphic lenses like the Crystal Expresses or something that might have, you know, aberrations that are going to really affect your framing.
The geometry of your shot and stuff like that.
And
Yeah.
it's nice now that there are so many full frame coverage optical viewfinders because you have what Dens makes. I didn't get a chance to check it out, but I know Bill Bennett along with Kish designed kind of an evolution of the Kish viewfinder. It's
Optica
yeah,
Magnus? Optica Magnus,
Optica
right?
Magnus,
I think
yeah.
they were at the GL Optics booth. Shout out GL Optics, shout out Avi Cohen. Yeah, they had another viewfinder that's also like a full frame, and you know, many people started using the Kish finder years ago, right? And so this is
Yeah.
sort of an update for full frame imager sizes. And you know, the TAT70 has interchangeable masks, interchangeable anamorphic modules for D-squeeze. So it's great for stuff like the Mercury with a 1.5 D-squeeze or an Orion with a 2 times. So you can interchange the D-squeeze module. And I think you could do that with the Optica Magnus as well.
It was really nice having the TAT70 at the booth and being able to just play with it. It's really easy to switch between settings on the fly, even though you're probably not going to do a ton of that on set once you're like, right, this is, well, you still will, depending, you know, something like Everything Everywhere, you know, where you're shooting everything.
Different formats,
Yeah.
right?
So it makes it nice.
And I think it makes, like, if it's not something you're going to own, it makes a great rental item. So if you're a rental house, having a finder that can be adaptable to a variety of situations, depending on what job it might go on, you know, and then, you know, you can customize sort of the accessories for the job. So it's a pretty nice, convenient thing that they're doing both at tat70.com and opticamagnus.com. And then, you know, of course, there's like sort of the hybrid for the new school. And I think I'd fit myself into this camp more. The Sigma FP.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big,
Wow. Yeah, I love the Sigma FP because it has built-in frame lines. And then sort of if you're scouting, you can establish frame lines and have your D-squeeze for different anamorphic modes. And you can shoot reference frames while you're out there in the field.
And it'll feed out to like your video village too. Yeah.
I think you can easily transfer stuff to your phone too. So if you're like on a scout, for instance, with a Sigma FP, you could transfer images to your phone and then be like, send those to base camp or whatever. So I consider myself sort of like one of those bridge people between the old school way of filmmaking and the new school way. And it sort of came into my lexicon that way because when I started in film on set as a PA and then a set lighting technician, most of the time we were shooting film. And then there was a transition to most of the time we were shooting digital. And now we're sort of in a intermixed mode, which is really cool. So I love seeing sort of the relationship between both film and digital formats. And I think there's no reason you can't play in both zones and maximize your learning, maximize your creative potential. It's really a fun time to be alive. I feel so lucky.
Yeah, there's so much good like support and equipment coming out right now. It's really cool.
What a great show, though, right? I mean,
yeah.
And our people that hosted the booth at NAB. So we had, you know, our talent. We had the fantastic Clint, Julia, Jackie, Weston doing different card illusions and
Oh, yeah, that was
cardistry.
really cool.
That was great.
Wanted to give a shout out to Tom with Ignite.
Oh, yes.
really cool, well-made camera support. He came all the way from Tasmania, Australia, to be at our booth.
What a great bunch of guys.
Yeah,
Seriously.
that was really fun sharing the space. Yeah,
So yeah, thank you for coming, all of you who were both part of the booth and those who just visited us. We had a blast.
that was super cool.
I'd say like some of my favorite things for the show. Oh, big shout out also to QST Holodeck for providing the display systems for the booth. So
That's
we had
really
a big
cool,
virtual
yeah.
production display behind us, and we were showcasing different reels. So some of it we actually had stuff filmed underwater by Mark Montocchio in the Cayman Islands, underwater.
That
with
was
a
my first
25,
time
right?
seeing the footage, and it was so cool to see it on the big screen.
Yeah, that was
Super
so
cool.
fun. So it was about a 20-foot wide by about 8-foot tall virtual production LED backdrop from QST Holodeck. And we were showing 25 millimeter Orion footage as the backdrop. And then in the foreground in our shooting gallery, we had the talent on camera doing card tricks, building Legos, and interacting with people in the audience. So it was really fun. It's almost like they were in a giant aquarium with a giant mermaid swimming behind them.
It was
Pretty
really
funny.
cool.
I'd say some of my favorite things from the show, maybe besides that Sony FX3 firmware, I really like the new Tilta Nucleus Nano focus control system. I don't even think that the potential of that has entirely been realized yet.
I didn't get a chance to check that one out. That looked really interesting.
Yeah, they integrated like a much higher end display system and data system into the handset. So you can control both the Nucleus Nano and Nucleus M motors with the handset, and you can reconfigure focus, iris, and zoom. And there's camera control for a wide variety of modern cameras, whether they're mirrorless cameras or otherwise. So it really packs a lot of punch for a very inexpensive price. It's like, I think it's around $299 for the handset.
Wow.
So hopefully that becomes sort of an indispensable part of different camera assistants or a cinematographer's tools, or even if you're just doing like unit work, like you got on a second unit or something, this can be probably a really indispensable tool for lens control, motor control, and even sometimes camera control, remote start, stop, things like that. So pretty innovative and interesting.
And Tilta just had their grand opening for their Magnolia
Oh, yeah.
location.
Huge shout out, Tilta North American headquarters in beautiful downtown Burbank, California. Anybody remember laughing? Probably not. But anyway, yeah, they had their grand opening, and it was really fun. I took my
Looked
kids
really cool.
over the
yeah.
weekend, so the kids and I went down to the grand opening, and Young Shao and everyone there were so welcoming and warm, and there were other kids
It's a
there too,
great
so it was
team,
kind of cool
yeah.
to see sort of the family atmosphere and environment, and then mixing industry, our work relationships and our family lives. It's kind of, as you know, when you're in this industry, it takes a lot of your life. It becomes a part of your lifestyle. But we always have to remember to save room for the people who matter absolutely the most of all, which is our family. So it was a really genuine, heartfelt experience, and we had a lot of fun.
Nice.
But, what were some of your favorite things from the show, Eric?
Well, as a like a lens tech, I'm always kind of looking for like new projectors and test equipment. And Dulens had their lens projector, which is on pre-order right now, but it was pretty interesting, and it's got a lot of potential. I think it's like a $5,000 projector, so that's going to give a lot of smaller rental houses that might not have been able to afford one, a chance to actually have a decent projector. So that was one of the things that kind of stood out for me.
Huge shout out, Mr. Dew and Jackson from Dew Lens. I love what those guys do because it's really unique and kind of community focused, community development oriented. So I would say it's a lens company for lens people in a lot of ways. And their vintage mini primes are really interesting because they're smaller than a Zeiss standard speed, but they have full frame coverage. And they have sort of a mini set that I think consists of a 31, 43, 58, and 85. And they have really unique bokeh. The coatings give them really interesting flares, and they're sort of generally lower contrast lenses, so it's sort of like a vintage spherical lens with full frame coverage. I like them a lot.
they're interesting. Yeah, they're really cool, and just yeah, launching those with the lens projector, I think is a really interesting move.
It's kind of like a craft lens
Yeah.
company. I feel like it's pretty fun.
The I know it's been out for a while, but the Fujinon 25 to 1000 PL mounted lens, I finally got a chance to play with, which is pretty cool. It's a big lens.
That's
But
really interesting that we're seeing this trend of sort of, big box lenses like that. Traditionally, we
like
think
a
about it
sports, yeah,
for like a baseball game
broadcast,
or
yeah.
sports, but they're sort of integrating the cinema world with live production, right? And we see this trend kind of happening with companies like Sony and Canon as well, where it's sort of cinematic live or cinematic TV. I
It's
guess you could say we're
all
doing
like
that right now, right? Cinematic anamorphic live stream on Instagram Live and YouTube Live.
it's all blending together.
Could be good, could be strange. I'm not sure. The future is strange.
Yeah.
I saw a car spot that was shot with that 25 to 1000 that
Oh,
was
really?
really wild. Yeah. I'll see if I could show you that after we're
That'd be
done
cool.
streaming. Trying to remember the name of it, but I think that was shot by Eric Robbins, who's a really awesome DP and good friend, cool guy.
Rad.
Shout out Eric.
And then yeah, the Canon Flex, the Super 35 to full frame coverage zooms, I thought were really interesting.
Those are fast zooms. Even in the
Yeah.
full frame mode, they're T2.4, right?
Was it 2.2 or 2.4?
2.4,
Okay.
yeah.
And then yeah, and Super 35 T1.7. So
Wow.
yeah, pretty cool.
The only other zoom I can think of that kind of even comes close would be the Sigma 18 to 35, which I am a huge fan
Yeah,
of. That's a very high
zoom.
contrast lens, though. Like, I love using it, but sometimes if I'm using it on a job where we need to intercut with other things, the contrast is so strong on that it doesn't, unless I put some filtration to soften that a little bit. I do love using it because it's super sharp
They're
and
built
it's
like tanks too.
fast and
Yeah.
versatile. They have the 50 to 100 1.8 too. And so I think those two go together pretty well. But the long one breathes a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it always happens with a zoom.
That's-
what
yeah.
can you do? But shout out. And yeah, those Canon Flex zooms are probably one of my favorite new lenses from the show.
Yeah, Canon's doing some interesting things optically. Pretty cool. And then yeah, we also had Clint from H and Optics at our booth, and he had the Voigtlander Zoomar, which is a super cool lens, 1959.
Yeah, I
was it
believe
made?
that's one of the very first photographic zoom lenses, actually. So it's amazing to see how that lens performs. It's a 36 to 82 millimeter full frame lens, f2.8, like T2.9-ish. But to see something that is over 70 years old, pretty much.
He was like kind of like yeah, and didn't make a huge splash when it came out, but like it's still super relevant. Like I mean, it performs incredibly well for yeah, cine shooting.
And small. The front is big diameter because you have a big ray bundle that has to fit through, but I really like that lens a lot.
And then yeah, he also brought by the Konica Hexanon rehouse lenses, which were really cool too.
I didn't get to spend as much time as I would have liked to, but I really would have liked to look through those Konicas some more because that's a very interesting vintage Japanese lens.
Kind of yeah, and I mean look a little bit like the Canon FDs, but without like yeah all the crazy hype behind them. They're cool. And without the, I think there was only one that had the, what's it, the glass that is radioactive that fades yellow.
Thorium
Thorium,
glass,
yeah. I think there was only, and I don't believe that's in the set.
Oh,
It was a
interesting.
focal length, so you don't have to worry about that and the weird shift. So
I kind of like what they're doing. It's kind of like crate digging for records, like finding the sort of unrecognized hits and then, kind of reissuing them or bringing them back out into the sunlight again for people to experience and use and see.
yeah, I love that. It's always exciting to see what they come out with. Yeah. And then, yeah, I guess other than that, like it seemed like the big theme of NAB this year was the virtual production stuff.
Definitely.
lots of what do you call it, like augmented reality screens and yeah, that was like
XR, MR, AR, all the R's, right?
so that was really
So
cool
what
to
is this, a
see
pirate
too.
show? R.
And just kind of where production's going with all that too, and just the new face of yeah.
It kind of awakened my mind to thinking about something slightly differently than I have been thinking, because we often think so camera centrically as camera people, but it made me realize how much display technology is actually driving what we as camera people are targeting for. And like, it sounds obvious when I say it, but it just wasn't as prescient in my mind to be thinking about, because something for the big screen, so it needs to have the right contrast for the big screen and look big, or we're filming something for an iPhone, so we're going to turn the camera 90 degrees so it's vertical. But philosophically, there's a lot of things that happen when you start looking at the fact that the display systems are driving the capture, because it will pull us in ways that maybe we hadn't even considered yet. And of course, that's certainly true for the origin of anamorphic filmmaking too, which was like a double, like, oh yeah, dude, wake up. Like, I've been talking about this for a while. It's actually still relevant. So format and platform are super relevant for how we as camera people are filming things, framing things, lensing things, camera choices, lens choices. So it's really, if we kind of become more conscious of this, it helps us make better informed decisions or influence the overall philosophy and way that we create images as collaborators, because our art form is an inherently collaborative one, besides being technical. So there's a lot to see and do there, and it's cool because, like, I think matte paintings are sort of one of the best illusions of classic films, and in a way, mixed reality XR/AR screens represent a new layer to that illusion and that kind of special magic of image making. So you can create an automatically updating matte painting that reflects where you're filming and dynamically lighting the scene.
And you also have like people making like or like the Kino. Did you see the Kino flow lights?
Oh yeah, that was
that
neat.
like work as screens, but it'll actually throw light off like the actual like video screen. Like so you get really motivated light coming through. It's really cool.
I really love that. I love seeing the resurgence of Kino flow, because Kino was, when I was starting, one of the most often used lights day to day. Literally, we'd be changing tubes, setting up our Kino banks, running the ballast, and then with the advent of LED, more and more people were thinking, okay, an integrated panel where we can change these things. And then there was sort of like a middle ground where there were tube-shaped LEDs, but to see Kino flow themselves sort of stake the ground and say, we're going to make pixel density level systems that you can actually send mixed reality images through, is really exciting. And the quality is there. Like, they're not playing around.
It opens up a lot of new like capabilities and things to try and experiment with too. It's really an interesting product.
For sure. Yeah, I think trying to think if there's anything else that we didn't cover that was sort of like best of show. I'm still trying to recover the brain cells I lost from that show.
NAB's always a long haul.
The Tilta B&H party got me, man.
Yeah, it was
We
really
had
fun.
a lot of fun. I'm just still shook.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd love to take some questions. If you're just joining, it's Dan and Eric from Atlas Lens Co. We're streaming live through Instagram Live, YouTube Live, via a Sony FX3 with the new anamorphic D-Squeeze firmware and an Atlas Orion 40mm T2 lens. Does anyone Instagram or YouTube Live have any questions for us that you'd love to talk about? Otherwise, we'll see you next week if there aren't any questions.
Nothing? All right.
Crickets?
Our next,
All right,
next
tune in
big
next
show will
Tuesday.
be Cine Gear too.
Yeah. Cinegear is my favorite. I'm so glad it's back at Paramount Pictures
me
this year
too.
on the back lot, my home lot. Thank you, Paramount. Thank you, Cinegear people. I love being at the Paramount lot. I think we're going to have so much fun. So Every Wednesday we have Wednesday Lens Day. Come on by to our Glendale, California headquarters. We're right near IKEA, so get some meatballs afterward. And if
Bring
you're,
your camera out, yeah.
yeah,
If you
bring
have
your own
anything you want
camera.
to test, like, yeah, that's what we're here for. So
You can even bring other lenses. We love lenses, so if you want to show us something, we'd love to see it. And stop by atlaslensco.com. Stop by our headquarters on Wednesday. Otherwise, we'll see you next Tuesday for the live stream, and maybe we'll have some surprise guests and some surprise items. I think we'll probably show you the Mercury 54 prototype, which is also one of the highlights from the show. Huge shout out, Julie and Jerry, for the content that you are filming in Vegas with Rob Machado and the crew out in Vegas. So be on the lookout for that stuff dropping soon. All right, no matter where you are in the world, have a great day, night, and stay well. Cheers.
cool. Thank you.